if there was a message that you would hope people would get from this video and the workshop, what would that message be?
To realize that they can navigate their way through life with greater clarity and understanding and create the kind of life that they want, and to really understand that quote again, which isn't, and to be the change that they want to see in the world, because how we are is then reflected out into the world, which I know can be a strange concept, because we're told that, well, the world is just there and we just live in it, and it's not quite that we have far more influence over our experiences, and therefore we can really create the changes. And knowing, again, it's knowing that it's not all about scarcity and limitation, and then we can all be much more open and abundant.
Dawn,
Hello, Adrian.
hello. Nice to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this conversation.
No worries. I'd like to talk to you, if I may, about a new course that I've heard that you're putting on. So could you tell me what it's called, please?
It's a workshop, it's a 90-minute workshop called Creating Change by the Power of Your Thoughts.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So what's it going to be about?
It's to help people understand that we can actually have more influence over all our life experiences. This isn't just the power of positive thinking, which a lot of people talk about, and we have all these different ideas of, the power of positive thinking. You just, sit there and think, and it'll all happen. That's not how it works. There's more to it. That's the starting point. It's not that positive thinking isn't relevant. It's not that you can't, that you shouldn't think. You need to think about what you want and how you want things. And at the same time, it's putting those thoughts into action, into the appropriate action with the people around you, and with your whole interactions with all your life experiences. So there are various ways of understanding how to change our experiences. And again, it's not necessarily to say that wherever you are is wrong. And that's one of the beliefs that people need. Something wrong with what's going on, or something wrong with their life. That's already a belief that is making them feel a certain way about themselves. And so those feelings will then instigate a whole series of actions based on that particular feeling and that thought process of, I've made a mistake, therefore I've done something wrong. And again, this is so much part of the indoctrination system that's called school, that we are taught to not trust ourselves. We are taught, we have to listen to the authority and they know best, and we learn from them, and then we regurgitate what we're told, and then we are either right or we're wrong. And again, it's always a split. It's either one or the other, where life just doesn't work like that, real life. And so we want to find out how life actually works, what we can do. Part of this particular workshop was inspired by the quote that is attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, although when I had a look at it, I discovered that he actually didn't say or write these particular words. This is just a synopsis of a somewhat longer quote, which is very profound. However, the quote is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And that concept is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And it is to explain and help and describe to people how that is important, why that is important, and to recognize that it is that everything comes from within ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and everything ripples out. So the actions we take are appropriate to our own belief systems rather than reactions to what we think is happening out there in the world. And at the moment, there is just so much, I think fear and conflict are two of the main things that are going on, and how we can navigate those circumstances that make us feel fear and make us perceive conflict.
Mhm.
And what is continuing to go on at the moment is that the conflict is being exacerbated by all these different labels and ideologies, and we're taught to, or we're expected to make decisions based on these ideas that are not even true in the first place. Like uh, the agenda thing. The gender. Sorry, the agenda as well. So with gender, the idea that there's more than just male and female, and also just the age old so-called battle of the sexes, as if we're supposed to be in a battle. And again, that's the other thing of all these different wars on the war on cancer, the war on drugs, the war on terrorism, the war, so this feeds the idea of conflict. And
They're just
it's
variations on the same playbook, or the same strategy that creates those feelings in people, aren't they?
exactly, and that keeps us in conflict with each other. It keeps us divided, of course, and that's the objective. So the solution, or one of the solutions, is to say, okay, well, how can we come together and communicate and collaborate and connect without always bickering on these minor points? Let's not focus on the differences. Let's actually focus on the similarities, and at the same time to respect the differences, because together, if we have different ideas and different creative ideas, we can do something far more powerful than any one person on their own. With the I mean, many people do have many different talents and abilities at the same time, but on our own, we still have limits to what we can actually do, the actions that we can take. And so with community, and this is not communism, I don't mean that at all. I'm talking about true collaboration, where people respect each other, where we work to our strengths, where we work together, and creating the solutions going forward so that we don't live in fear and conflict, so that we just are creative and find ways of making the changes that we want to see
Mhm.
in the world.
Mhm.
Because the way the world is not the way the world has to be, and it's not the way the world has to continue to be. It can change, and it all starts from within each one of us, and
Yeah.
that's
It would be fair
where.
to say, wouldn't it, that everything you're seeing out there is simply a reflection of the overall collective mind of everybody?
Yes, and our own individual experiences are very much, well, are direct reflection of our own ideas, beliefs, ideologies, thoughts, processes, and emotions. So each one of us creates our own particular experiences,
Mhm.
and that's another one of the points of maybe sort of not necessarily conflict is a bit too strong, where people have different perceptions of something that may be the same kind of event, and and they say, well, I see that, and somebody says, well, I see something different.
Mhm.
And that's because they're coming from a different perspective, and some people may have a more restrictive belief system, and somebody with a more open belief system will be able to see different world events in a somewhat different way, and therefore they would then take somewhat different action. Whereas some people with restricted belief systems will be triggered to feel they have to take a side and take action and be anti and very belligerent and aggressive, and that just doesn't work. And I'm not talking about being passive, because again, I know, like with Gandhi, I mean, he was peaceful at the same time. He was taking action. He was recommending action,
Mhm.
and but not aggressive action. So it's finding ways to take action that isn't that doesn't fuel the conflict, that doesn't continue it. And I'm not saying I have the answers. I mean, I have some ideas. It's just the starting point is learning that everything comes from within us and understanding how we can remove the limiting beliefs and what actually are beliefs and how we've been conditioned to have those different beliefs.
Hmm.
And knowing that they are just beliefs is the first step in being able to dissolve them. And again, it's not saying, oh, you're bad if you've got these beliefs. Not that at all. It's just saying, well, if you don't like that belief, if that belief isn't serving you, and I think that's the point, if you are not benefiting from that belief, or in fact, if anything, if that belief is holding you back from doing something, then it's certainly time to have a look at it and decide how to dissolve it in some way. And again, everyone will be different.
Hmm.
So there's no like, oh, this is the formula. There are ways, and it's usually recognized, as I say, recognizing that they are beliefs that are holding you back, that you can really just recognize that and say, okay, oh, if that's not true, oh, that's a belief. Oh, okay. I don't have to hang on to that one because that really isn't serving me. So it's being able to get people to start trusting their intuition. And I'm sure more and more of us are recognizing our intuition. It is a somewhat quieter voice. It is in there though.
It's hard to get if you feel fearful because
Yes.
that puts you into the wrong kind of state. So, working out where you're at emotionally, how you're feeling, which I'm not saying make an emotional decision. What I'm saying is be monitoring how you feel. And then from a place where you feel better, another emotion like hopeful or excited or whatever it is, you've got access to different resources like tuning a TV. You change channels, you see it, you have a different experience coming back.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's why there's so much fear mongering going on because it keeps people in a hyper state that stops them from being able to access even thinking critically or just thinking clearly. So the idea is to move away from that noise, to reduce the noise, to just take a step back, have some time where you can just calm. And that's my one of my um, methods, if you like, of just being calm, so people can feel that they don't have to be on guard, so they can just feel calm. And the way I present is not to overwhelm people with information, but to guide them through various steps to show them how they've been fooled by things. I mean, some people will know some of the information. Again, we all have different pieces of the puzzle. So as they go through these processes, or they'll go through these stages of recognizing where they've been fooled, they can then unpack it and let it go as a belief and go, oh, I don't have to. No, you can let that go. And it's not, oh, it has to happen because these things are always a process. So it's to take people through the process of being able to see things somewhat differently. And it's won't be going down rabbit holes. So that's not the
Well, it
information because
sounds to me, Don, sorry for interrupting you there, that what
that's
you're doing is you're first of all creating a very kind of safe, nurturing environment where people can explore stuff. And the second one is you're providing very specific strategies, tools that you can then start to examine stuff so that you can have a much better experience.
yes, for people to have that um, ability to see how they've been, yeah, indoctrinated, set up, whatever it is, how, and that allows the intuition to start kind of speaking out. They can start tuning in, and again, from that calm and nurturing kind of space, they're more likely to recognize and to be able to get that feeling of, oh yes, that those little moments where or even to kind of, yes, I thought so, or because I've had many of those where when with that time when you in that right space, you can hear something, you think, yeah, I kind of felt that. Um, again, we're taught not to speak up and not to stand out against against the majority. And of course, we like to be part of a community. We like to be accepted, and being rejected can be pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ostracized and cut off, and all sorts of things have happened with different people, and the idea is to find ways of then reconnecting. As I said, I'm not pretending I have the answers. I'm hoping these workshops will then inspire people to, to kind of connect and to develop some ideas for themselves of
Mhm.
how we can actually reconnect with those people who have said, "Oh, can't talk to you," or "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," and go, No, not necessarily."
Well, it doesn't sound like you're you're not covering the kind of conspiracy theory ground at all. You're simply giving people tools.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. That's really cool because it's a much more it's a broader audience. I meant to ask you, by the way, who would you imagine that this would be beneficial for?
I think there's probably a range of people who have been looking into, a lot of the material over the last few years, and probably even before, and they're starting to piece some of the pieces together, and yet they're still feeling that there's a lot of conflict and fear mongering, and they're not quite sure how to work out what to do, or that they've got certain ideas. It's too, but maybe not all the different pieces of the puzzle. And again, I'm not saying I have. It's just together to be able to see the bigger picture,
Mhm.
and then to find ways. So again, this might be people who are in contact with various groups, and so they may find ways that they can actually implement certain strategies back to their groups, whether it's freedom groups or whatever. So it's people who are along the awakening path, and they don't have to be at a certain stage of their journey, because I think we can always learn something new and new strategies. Even from the last workshop, uh, you know, there were people there who I know had been, along the awakening path, and there was still something something useful that they gained from that. So I know, even reading the same book, you can get something different each time.
Oh yeah.
So, it's really people who are open-minded, I suppose, and ready to take some new steps, take some steps forward, maybe if they're feeling a little stuck, because I know there was a lot of strange energy around last year, 2023.
Yeah. In that case, if you're watching this right now or listening to this and you think this might be useful for someone, can I encourage you to go and share this video right now with them so that they can appease themselves of this information? I have another
And
question for you, which I'm curious about. I know the answer anyway, but I want to ask it so people hear it. Why do you do what you do? Why are you doing this?
many of us know how life should be. It should be calm, peaceful, loving. And that doesn't mean to say, just flatlined and boring. I don't mean that. It's, interesting, not from a place of fear. We know that this is all wrong. What's going on is wrong. And so it's important to find out what we can do to, again, create a world that is more loving and harmonious and peaceful, and more interesting and more exciting and more creative. So it's, as I say, it's not about being, just peace and love and nothing else. It's about being creative. And it is possible, and certainly it's more than possible to be able to do something. It's to find different ways of creating something new, to look at what's wrong, and to say, well, we don't want that, and we want to do something new, because the world is a beautiful place. It is abundant. It is glorious, and we are not enjoying life as it could be enjoyed. We're being browbeaten and made to live in fear, where that's not how we are, who we are, how life is meant to be. And I've built enough life experiences and knowledge, and there comes a point where I have to share and do my part in helping bring about this beautiful new world, or the way the world should be. And say new world, I mean bring it to how it should be, how it can be. I just can't sit by idly and do nothing when I can contribute. It's it's I can't do anything else.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's going to come pouring out of you. It's in there. It's got to come out.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I was hoping you might do is share one of the, maybe not an element of the course, one of the insights. We were talking about a couple of experiments which were fascinating that show how people are being driven and manipulated without really realizing it. And I'm thinking particularly about Ash and Milgram.
Yes, the first workshop I did cover the ash experiments, because they are fascinating. Just how somebody can be made to conform. I also thought it was interesting, and I hope people have watched the short video to see the guy who is the only true participant, how his features, how his whole demeanor, how his response, how his body language changed when he just conformed. Uh, and that's quite telling. I will be including something about the Milgram experiments, which are in brief. The It was set up so that it appeared to be.
Sorry, could we just go back to the Ash? Could you give a real brief? Because you gave the kind of end of that as to how he looked, but could you briefly kind of summarize what that experiment was about?
The whole setup was to it's literally very simple to recognize or to match the length of one line on a piece of paper once on its own, and with one of three other lines that were at differing lengths, one of them obviously the same length. So they had to choose whether the line they were given on this single piece of paper matched A, B, or C on the other piece of paper. And at the beginning, there was only one true participant. All the others were collaborators of the system, and they'd been told what to do. And at the beginning, these collaborators, who always started the questioning, it was always the participant that was the last to question. So at the beginning, the collaborators were giving the correct answer. So the participant was happy to give the correct answer. After a couple of rounds, the collaborators started giving the wrong answer. And the first time, the participant looked puzzled and gave the right answer. They were like, what are they talking about? And gave the right answer. And then subsequently, he just caved in and just went, his answer was just very, that the attitude. So he followed what they had all done, that, the answer they'd given, he gave the same answer, even though he knew it was wrong. So again, this is the cognitive dissonance that arises. And you could see it.
And so it was out of a need to conform that he finally stopped believing what his eyes were telling him and just went along with the pack.
Yes, I mean, there's no way of knowing what was actually going through his head. He certainly was puzzled and didn't know. This was on this one particular. They did run a number of different variations. One of them was that the true participant was late, or appeared to arrive late, and he was told that but because he'd been late, he had to write down his answers rather than speak them. And in those circumstances, they almost always gave the right answer, the correct answer. It doesn't matter what the others were saying, because they were writing it down. So what they're saying is that it's the appearance when so you can give the correct if nobody else knows, but when people know that you're different or saying something different from them, you're going against what they're saying. I mean, that part, that was very interesting, and they ran a few variations of those kinds of, experiments just to see how people would conform. In overall, even though something like 75% of the participants, because they say across the board of all these experiments, about 75% would conform, and you think, "Oh, that's a bit depressing." Remember, that's still 25% who didn't conform,
Yeah,
and that's
who
where
stuck with their guns. Yeah.
yes. And that's really interesting. So again, depending on it might depend on the circumstances. And again, they tried others where there was somebody else who would give the right answer.
Mhm.
And so that reinforced the person who to be able to then give the right answer. So they
Yeah.
weren't on their own standing out from the crowd. But the whole thing
Well,
is
that meets one of the human needs of connection,
yes, it did. It did. Absolutely.
and that's
And
probably the
in
driver behind that. I think about it.
yes, and you can see that in the video because the two who were giving the different answers have then got that kind of, yes,
Yeah.
so it is that connection. It's like, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
There's somebody else. So yeah.
Interesting. And the other experiment was the milligram experiment, which is a bit more violent, if you will.
Well, apparently so.
Yeah.
The idea was that there were two participants and they were each selected for a role. One would be the person under examination, and the other one would be the person actually giving the well, it's actually supposedly electric shocks.
Hmm.
Only in truth, again, it was only the person who was um, in charge of the machine that was giving the electric shocks who was the true participant. The other, the other person who couldn't be seen, who was on the other side of a screen or something, he was a collaborator.
Hmm.
And the the idea was to see how far people would go. It's something to do with what they were looking into as to why people followed instructions in the Second World War or something like that. I don't want to go into that. It was just the finding out what people would do because the person operating the machine who was told to step up these electric shocks is what they thought they were giving. They were being given instructions by somebody in white lab coat, the standard kind of look of a scientist, or
Yeah.
that kind of
An
look.
authority figure.
That's it. And that's the point, how far they would go to the authority figure. Now, at the beginning, they'd have a sort of a small. Oh, the only reason they would give a shock is if the person at the other side gave an incorrect answer to a question. So there was some kind of test going on. So if they gave an incorrect answer, the participant was instructed to give a small electric shock. And as the answers kept being incorrect, they were supposed to keep turning up the dial. And the uh, the authority figure had a list of instructions if the participant said, "I'm not comfortable doing this." So they had of oh, things like, oh, it's okay. No, it's not hurting him. Oh, and they stepped up so that they would get that comfort factor that they were then being told what they were doing was okay. So in a way, they're just giving away the perceived, or giving away the idea, the perception that it's not me because I'm being told to do this.
Just doing my
It's
job, right?
actually yes, exactly. So, yes, that's just well, I'm being told what to do. So, so there's some kind of disconnection from the responsibility for what they were doing. The, the I offhand I can't remember the statistics. I will include them as to how many people just went through the whole range to the point where they were administering very powerful electric shocks, some of them potentially lethal. And
All because they've been told to by someone in authority and surrendered it to them.
complete surrender, yeah, complete surrender of authority. And I don't think no, I probably shouldn't make a statement because at the moment I can't remember exactly. I think the percentage of people who didn't even at least start was incredibly low. If it wasn't zero, it may have been very small. So some people were at least prepared to start that process of just giving a shot because somebody gave a wrong answer. This just the even though it sounds violent, the one thing is that they weren't administering anything. This was again an act,
Well,
and
it's a perception, isn't it?
it is. Nobody was harmed in those experiments whatsoever. There were no electric shocks. It's just, to
Mhm.
see what people would do under certain circumstances.
Well, Dawn, if that's only one element of your course, it sounds like you've got some really juicy stuff packed into there for people.
Thank you. Well, it's to give these insights for people to really understand that, okay, that's an experiment. It's to realize that that understanding of human psychology is being carried forward into what they are doing now, and it's relevant to our lives now.
Yeah.
And it's important to break away from being manipulated. Now, it's not to say this is nobody's fault. It's not blaming people in any way, shape, or form. It's helping people empower themselves to say, well, hang on a minute. I know they're playing with human psychology. It's not that they're controlling your thoughts. It's being able to control the way we think. And so if we can break out of that pattern, then more and more of us will be able to say, no, not following your rules, thank you very much. And we're setting up a new way and collaborating with people that's not violent, that's not based on harm, or that's based on non-harm. And so much more can happen. And we're moving in that direction really rapidly. It's to help as many people and to get more people into this understanding of again who we are, because we are more than this, meat suit, as some people call it. And I'll be going into that as well to a certain extent, because so many people think, oh, well, our thoughts, and it's all in the brain. And there are some questions over that as well, because that's not where the thoughts, the ideas come from. And we are more powerful. And it's to really get people to, or let's not get people, to help people understand that they do have that power. And again, the kind of, the spiritual, if you like, if people who are spiritual have that understanding of being more than this, this physical part,
Mhm.
and they say, well, we, just let's destroy the ego. Well, we don't want to destroy the ego, because this is how we function here. So it's to understand who we are and what we can do here, and to take the appropriate action here in this physical realm to then create the changes.
Mm.
So again, that's why be the change you want to see in the world. It does come from knowing who we are and what we can do here. And the more people that understand how powerful we are, that just ripples out, and that just knocks the control system
Yeah.
out. I mean, it'll
It's not
take
built to
away.
withstand that.
It cannot withstand. And that's why, of course, their whole processes are their whole uh, everything they're trying to put out and make us believe is based on limitation. It's based on fear. It's based on scarcity. It's based on lack of agency, being insignificant, being powerless, all these things. So the solution is to actually flip all of those on their head and say, well, we are powerful,
Yeah. And
we
here's
are
why.
creative,
Yeah.
just everything. And that then ripples out.
So when is the course, Dawn?
It's on Saturday, the 2nd of March at because at the timing, so 9 a.m. US Pacific time, so that's 12 noon Eastern time, 5 p.m. UK time,
Yeah, brilliant.
and 6 p.m. Central European time. So
And what are you charging for the course?
the course there's no charge. However, there's an option to donate, and people can choose however much, little, whatever their means that they can contribute to help support my work, because I think this information is too important to be restricted to those who have the funds. So at the same time, if people have the means to be able to donate, then that's wonderful. That helps everybody, because this all helps everybody. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm helping them help themselves, and that's where the true power lies.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a donation thing. So if you watch the video, if you join the workshop and you like the workshop, then you should be able to go back to the original link and then make a donation in, recognizing the value it's been to you and the position you're in financially as well. Is that fair?
That is fair. That page will be left open, so the
Yeah.
the donation button will still be there. I'm I'm planning, providing there's enough interest, to have a follow-up Q&A discussion session the following week. And
Yeah,
again, that
that'll
will
only be for
also,
the people who've been on the workshop though, won't it?
absolutely, absolutely, because if people ask questions, yeah, well, we covered that, so it makes sense only for people. So the replay won't be available publicly, at least until after the Q&A session, so that in fact, actually, that might be worth contemplating, to make the workshop public after the Q&A session. As you say, the Q&As will only be available for those who've taken the workshop, because I'd like the questions and I'm not pretending I've got answers, but it's to do, create discussions around
Sure.
kind of areas where people have questions or concerns, to then dive a little bit deeper. So again, they would need to have
Gotcha.
attended the workshop to understand what's been discussed and what's there.
Okay. And one more question, if I may. If there was a message that you would hope people would get from this video and the workshop, what would that message be?
To realize that they can navigate their way through life with greater clarity and understanding, and create the kind of life that they want, and to really understand that quote again, which isn't, and to be the change that they want to see in the world, because how we are is then reflected out into the world, which I know can be a strange concept, because we're told that, well, the world is just there and we just live in it, and it's not quite that we have far more influence over our experiences, and therefore we can really create the changes. And knowing, again, it's knowing that it's not all about scarcity and limitation, and then we can all be much more open and abundant.
I'll give people a quick example. If you think it's about scarcity, look at nature. You plant a tomato, it gives you hundreds of seeds to plant 100 more tomato plants. Nature is ridiculously abundant, and our experience of it should be the same thing.
Yes, that nature is not separate from us. We
No,
are
we are nature.
we are nature. We are all interconnected. And if anyone wants to know more about that, the Secret Life of Plants is a fantastic book.
And the hidden life of trees.
I have that. I'm partway through that one as well. Yes, and they're just amazing that these plants, they're not just this, things. They're my lovely plants. And yes, I do talk to my plants,
Well, they're
and
doing well.
quite a lot of people do as well. It's really to understand, we're not above nature. We're part of nature. Everything is connected, and everything is interconnected, and that's why the more we do putting out, and it sounds very, new agey to say, oh, love. It's love, but it's not in a very it's not a passive way. It's an
Yeah.
active way of being in the world, and that's
Yeah.
why it's important to take action and express ourselves in this way, and it's in the non-violent way as well. So it's all a learning journey, all exciting stuff.
Dawn, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.